Buongiorno Paisans, welcome back to Calcio Culture. This is your host Vos, and I'm joined by both my co-hosts today, Logs and Motts. Happy hump day, guys. How are you doing?
Doing just fine, Paisans. Happy to have you.
Ciao, Paisans. Glad to be here. Pumped for another episode of Calcio Culture. We got a good one for you boys today and girls.
We do got a good one. Today we're continuing our club previews with the discussion of AS Roma. Logs, if you guys are on the YouTube and you're seeing him, for some reason he's wearing a Fiorentina jersey. I've got on my Roma garb. But before we get into it, we got some quick shouts for you as always. Logs, what do you got for the Paisan Army here?
Bring it to the motherland. A little quick shout to the Olympics. Giorgia Villa, Olympian gymnast for Italy, brought home the first medal in gymnastics since 1928. Now, by itself, that's good. Good for her. Good job. Her main sponsor, Parmigiano Reggiano. This girl is sponsored by the one and only cheese. And while we're on that topic, if anybody out there, anybody in the Paisan Army would love to sponsor Calcio Culture, we have a couple of spots still open, a couple of pending closes. So if you need to, get in line.
Shout out the old country.
The motherland. I didn't like that shout when I saw it on the plan here, but that was a good one. You delivered that flawlessly too. Good,
Yes,
good for them. I haven't watched a second of the Olympics. Is it Italy good?
No.
I'm also boycotting it due to the opening ceremony. However, I was at work and they had the Olympics on and I did watch it during lunch. Shout out Simone Biles, won the gold. Watching her documentary on Netflix as well. Tune into that, Paisanos.
And that's our only random shout today. Usually Logs just got two in the holster, only one. So we'll get into a little bit of footy action early on today. Preseason games are still rolling. Napoli won 1-0. Was that today, by the way, guys? That was today?
Yeah, that was today. Raspadori had a sick goal. It was kind of like a early cross in from the right side. Took it down with his knee and then hit it off the ground on a one-time for a 1-0 win. And then after the game, Nathan got into an all-out brawl and Antonio Conte had to break that up. So, but I mean, that's something that Conte probably wants to see out of his players. He loves to see his players energetic and getting into fights, and he can take that and just roll with it. So you might think, hey, that he's putting them in the wrong direction, but Conte loves that stuff.
No, 100%. That has Conte written all over it. The best Conte moment ever is the Tuchel handshake where he shook his thing. Like, the overall started over that. That just defines Conte like to a T. I love that guy. I'm happy he's back in the league. He's so great. Great teams that he makes. And yeah, I'm super excited about Napoli in general.
Couple of great friendlies on tonight too. Just going off the back of that, I know preseason for some people can get a little boring, but they really stacked tonight. Two great games going on. One live as we speak. 2-1, Liverpool Arsenal in Philadelphia. Battle of the Reds. Great lineups out there. They actually had a good amount of the first 11 that we think from the season. No Calafiori for Arsenal. They did have Jacob Kiwior out there, which was interesting. And then AC is playing Real Madrid in Chicago. Not the full lineups out there, but definitely love to see these teams going at it.
And if AC win that game, they will have beat the second and third best teams in the world at this point in City and Real Madrid. So that's
undisputed champions.
By the transitive property, they would be the team to beat.
Yeah.
But on the Liverpool Arsenal game, I want to give a quick shout out here. My cousin Blake, his roommate Ben, who's my boy. We have a football manager season that me, Blake, and Ben are running. He's at the game, big Arsenal fan. So sick for him. Shout out Ben.
No Calafiori though, so maybe he's cursed. So Ben, figure it out. Get him out there. Hopefully he brought a horn and he's wearing one to some good juju to get him out on the field. But that's it for our friendlies today. One other transfer that I wanted to point out early here, Alexsei Miranchuk has finally left Serie A. This is a Russian attacking midfielder, was on Atalanta, had a couple of loan moves. I was really hot on this guy and his brother when they were coming out of Russia a bunch of years ago. They're both decent players, just never came together for them. So RIP there. But our last quick shout for the day, we saw some great videos, some great images. AS Roma's new stadium announcement, not officially going to happen, just the renderings of the stadium have been brought up. They're pitching it, and it looks amazing.
Love what they're doing with the stadiums these days. I hope that AC can get their shit together and get something out there for the fans to see. I know they've had some weird little ones. I'm still not even sure if they're getting in, if they're sharing with Inter still, but Roma, great job. I know the Olympic Stadion is one of history, but it's good to see them moving on from there.
That's what well, it might not happen because I was reading that, like, they tried to do it a year or 2 ago, and, like, Rome's got so much sacred ground that they can't always build on ground, so it's supposed to be up in 2027, but that depends on if they can even build there, but what I wanna talk about, Logan, is what you said. The San Siro history, Roma Stadium is it I don't want them moving on, like, those are sick stadiums that have been there forever. I wanna go to them, like, yes, getting a new stadium is awesome, but, like, I
So
kinda want them to stay where they're at.
did you see the latest video? I'm pretty sure this was San
Yeah,
Siro
it
of the
was
stands at the top just rattling with the
yeah,
noise
almost
of the
yeah.
stadium. I mean, it looked like it was about to fall down.
I'm
Yeah,
okay
that's
with that. My problem more
Yeah,
with
risk the lives of the fans.
I'm
Risk 'em.
okay with it. What I more don't like, and I like that Roma's looking to get a new stadium, is Serie A, and I said it last pod, taking itself more seriously and being we're not like the olden days of like because people go back, oh, Italian football was the best football 40, 50 years ago. It's now saying we are the best football again. And now they need to bring everything else to get up to that standard. In stadiums like the Olympic Stadium in Rome, just watching games in that stadium where you can't even see the fans, I hate. That's my
yeah,
problem
they're
with it.
so far
With the
away,
San
yeah.
Siro, it's new enough where it's built where, like, you're kind of on top of the pitch. It's the same thing with the Napoli, the Maradona Stadium.
Yeah,
That
the
stadium has gotta go. Like,
They'll
there's not
never get
even
rid of it.
fans in the lower bowl.
That's a
They'll
fair
never get
point.
rid of it.
Modernize the Serie A. I agree. That's a fair point. And yeah, a lot of Italian stadiums have a track around the field, so the closest seat is after the track, so you are pretty far away from the
Yeah,
pitch.
and I always talk about my favorite stadium to, like, watch a game on TV is I don't even think it's called the Allianz anymore, but Bayern Munich Stadium because you see everybody and you get to see so much of the stadium, like, in the clip, and it just brings another level to the game you're watching on TV. So I hate the tracks. I'm any stadium with a track that they're considering knocking down, I'll throw in some money to make it happen.
That's a good
One
point.
quick
Fair
note
point.
before we go to break. We keep talking about this theme that Serie A is taking themselves a lot more seriously. You know what's really behind that all, which is it's kind of funny to say? It's all the American investment. You look at all the private equity that's moved in, that's where the money's coming from. And I think that's I don't know where that's coming from, but for whatever reason, America is taking soccer a lot more seriously these days, and good for them to bring it over to Italy.
Well, it's interesting because I think actually part of that is they missed the boat on the Premier League for the most part. So now they're seeing
Naturally.
that this is maybe the market to go into. So it's interesting. And the other thing that coincides with this is Calcio Culture coming onto the scene here in Italian football, trying to take themselves seriously just as much as we are.
I was gonna say that as well, Voss. We are driving Serie A, we're driving Calcio as much as we can here at Calcio Culture, just as much as those front office guys in America that are doing it for on a greater scale, but we're doing it too. We're doing our part.
And there's only
Everyone's got to do
one
their
group of
part.
people doing it more than anybody, and that's the Paisan Army. Without you guys, Serie A would be nothing. Calcio in America would be nothing. And on that, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get into the real meat of the episode. We are back from the break, guys, and today we're taking a nice little stroll to the eternal city, Rome, city of legend, city of legends as well, to talk about AS Roma, a club that historically hasn't won a whole bunch, but for some reason everybody loves them, especially me. Love them. There's some legends that have come through there, notably Francesco Totti and the man at the helm now, Daniele De Rossi, not only a Roma legend, but an Italian legend in his own right, has been on some of the best Italian teams to ever come through, and has turned this team around from what they had at the beginning of last season. If you guys didn't know, the story here is that AS Roma hired José Mourinho, and that was really the first major appointment as a club that was kind of in transition, trying to make that next push to the next level. It didn't really work out. They did win a Conference League final. Other than that, not a whole lot of good things came of the Mourinho era, I think is generally the consensus. Fast forward January last year, Daniele De Rossi takes over, and things started to change. We saw a new kind of play, similar setup in a way, just a lot more offensive prowess to the team that we didn't see under Mourinho, as a lot of people would probably expect. They got all the way to the semifinal of the Europa League, where they barely missed out on a final in a very good two legs against Bayer Leverkusen, who ultimately lost the final and almost had a completely undefeated season. So shout out Leverkusen for what they were able to achieve last year. In the league, he finished in sixth place. So he's got Roma back in a European competition next year. For me, guys, I didn't agree with keeping him, which I think is a hot take. And I just want to take a couple minutes maybe to talk about why they made the decision to stick with De Rossi. And we'll get into kind of what we're expecting them to play like this year. But to start with, what are your thoughts on De Rossi remaining at the helm? And either one of you can jump in.
I'm a fan. I mean, I one of my biggest things is keeping managers on for more than a half a season. I'll stick to that through and through. You have to give whoever you put out there, you have to give them time. I mean, you look at Chelsea that just runs through managers like no tomorrow. I just don't think that's the right way to go about it. Now, when you look at the history of just signing past players for a squad, I think the one name that comes to mind is Pirlo, who, I mean, you can say what you want. Maybe you shouldn't have gotten let go either. But I think, for one thing, I like this move, especially in Serie A. I think that it says a lot for the team to bring back an old player, especially someone who's spent their entire career on that exact squad. There's a lot of heart that comes into this. You get a lot of respect from the players. Sometimes you can be a little bit too close and you get almost like a little bit of, a fan base on your team when you do that. But from the turnaround that De Rossi put in place for this past season, I think he warranted at least keeping him another half, if not that full next season.
Yeah, just wanted to defend my favorite player, Pirlo, obviously, before I get into De Rossi. He had a decent, wasn't a great season, won a trophy, finished top 4. His problem was he was the first manager to not win the Scudetto, and it came to their 9 years winning a Scudetto in a row came to an end under Pirlo, and so that's why he got sacked. He played good football and had a decent season. But obviously, we're talking about De Rossi here. And before I want to give my opinion on if I liked them giving him the full-time job, this had to be a smart hire from Roma because Mourinho is a big name. Like when they got Mourinho to come in, it was big for Roma. Like they're like, we're going to be back and play in competitive football, be in European leagues or to finish top 4. And then they obviously let him go. But once again, it had to be a smart hire because Mourinho even brought them their first European trophy in like 60 years or something. I think they had the longest gap between a European trophy like ever. And so, like I said, it had to be a smart hire, which is why I think the hire of De Rossi was extremely smart because who better to replace him than a club legend, somebody who played for Roma for 18 years, knows the club, knows the stadium, knows the league, knows the competitions he's going to be playing in, and knows the fan base, and obviously knows the game. So it was a great hire at the time because even if he does kind of burn out, he's still a club legend. Like he gave everything for this club, never left it. So even if he doesn't do amazing, like Juventus fans still love Pirlo, right? So even if he didn't do as good as he did, no one would have lost love for De Rossi. However, he came in and just completely changed them around, made them an attacking style, just go, 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 goal after goal after goal. I think he did an amazing job. And like Logan said, he has the players' ears. They are buying into his system. He can convince players to come. He can convince players to stay, and they give their all for him and their shirt. So I really like the hire, like the move. Really think it was smart by Roma.
A lot of the stuff you guys are saying, I agree with. I have thought about this a lot, and the reason that I don't actually love it is to what you guys just mentioned, how big of a deal it was for them to get Mourinho. I would have liked them to take the bull by the horns here. I think De Rossi was actually the safe appointment in terms of we're not going to create any fireworks. His ceiling is, we don't really know. His floor is, we kind of have an idea now. But this is a guy that's never really managed a major club. And he just took on half a season and did well, yes. But there were guys out there like Roberto De Zerbi I would have loved to see them go after and just say, De Rossi, you've done a great job, but we're going to put in the contingency that whoever we bring in, you're going to be on the staff and you're going to learn more and how a club actually is run for a long-term replacement in the future. That's what I would have liked to see, especially with De Zerbi going to Marseille. Like, I think they probably could have gotten this done if they wanted.
He
I
gets
think he
paid a
went to
lot.
Marseille for the money. Yeah.
Yeah. Roma's not gonna be able to pay him as
Yeah, but
much.
they paid Mourinho.
He would have had to take a pay cut to Zerbi if he wanted to. I also think, listen to the fans. I'm sure if you ask all the Romanistas, like they would be like, give me De Rossi, especially after what he was given and what he changed them to be. Right? Like he was given a team they win Corto Muso, Allegri ball, 1-0, 1-1, and then he changed them to he beat De Zerbi in the Europa League 4-0, dismantled De Zerbi's team, beat AC Milan in the Europa League. Was just they were firing on all cylinders, scoring 2 goals a game, 3 goals a game, 4 goals a game. So I think that's why they kept him around, because they saw, listen, this is what we can do and this is what he can do. Give him more time to implement more of his system.
I think we're also forgetting that Mourinho completely lost not only the team but the fans. I think throughout his tenure there. I mean, you're talking about a guy.
That's not really true. Everybody was sad that it didn't work, was really the consensus. People wanted it to work, and it wasn't that they turned on Mourinho. It was just a realization that this isn't working. We're going to move on. But I don't think it ever got to the point where it's like, we hate the team, we hate Mourinho.
Close. I mean, sure. They were sad that the big move that Roma finally did after so many years didn't work out. Of course, you're going to be upset about it. But you're also talking about the same guy that has gone into multiple interviews after losses and been like, my players suck. It was all their fault, and I had nothing to do with it. So how can you look at a locker room like that, who's completely detached from most of the squad, and not go for your next manager and look at somebody who's going to bring that squad together, bring the morale back, and at least set the stage for a more positive future where the camaraderie is back, the fans are back into it. And I think the easiest way to do it and the fastest way to do it was to bring in De Rossi.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, Mourinho did go after a game in a press conference while he was the manager of Roma and just throw their entire front office under the bus. Granted, it was justified because he was like, they don't spend any money. How do you expect me to improve without spending money? We just lose players. And that was true. Like, he wasn't lying. They didn't spend any money. Now they're kind of changing that and spending money. But as the manager, you can't just be like, listen, we're not spending money, so I can't get anything better from this team.
Yeah, that's true. I'm a big Mourinho guy, but let's move on. Because the guy, De Rossi, is at the wheel. We kind of know what the style of play is going to be. We don't exactly know. Now that he's had a full preseason, there might be some tweaks into what we can expect from them. I'm sure with the full season, kind of new players coming in, we'll see tweaks throughout the season. But from day one, what do we expect this team to look like, line up with, and kind of how they're going to play within that formation?
So just based off what he did last year when he came in, he threw out Mourinho's 3-5-2 formation and defensive style, and as I mentioned earlier, implemented his own attacking style. A play that dominates the game by controlling the ball with speed, constant movement, extreme fluidity, and constant attacking with heavy pressing and vertical play. He usually lines up in a 4-3-3. He's a pretty big 4-back manager. However, on the ball, it's a kind of a hybrid situation where on the ball it changes to like a 3-2-4-1. It can be a 3-2-2-2-1 in occasions, and he can even get as attacking as a 2-3-4-1 to really overload the middle of the pitch and create passage of plays to allow players to score. So you can expect him to control the ball, dominate the ball, and be extremely attacking. And like I said, even have 6 guys forward at some points in the game.
Talking about this, and this definitely alludes to all the other conversations we had and why this should be such an exciting Serie A year, just not only for Roma, but for the league as a whole, is how attack-minded all the dominant teams are looking to be. We'll see what actually happens. But with from the managers to the players that are coming in, everybody is getting even more attacking, and that's really, really great to see. They do have a Mourinho squad, though, at the moment, which I think may limit them in how far they can get until they bring in some new guys that fit this system better.
I agree, and we're going to go into who they're bringing in, but even with that Mourinho squad, he was able to bring up their goals per game average from 1.5 under Mourinho to 2.5 with the same exact roster, like bringing in nobody. In his first 10 games with the Mourinho squad, he scored 22 total goals. And as I mentioned earlier, he was able to beat very, very good teams like AC Milan and De Zerbi's Brighton. So he's proved to be able to get results with the Mourinho squad. And then if you get some of his guys, you could do even more.
Yeah, I hope they give him a couple. It seems like they are giving him a couple guys that he wants. And it does seem like the team is kind of taking on the Daniele De Rossi personality of playing for the badge, which is a big deal at the end of the day. We talked about with Pioli was a man manager that was able to win a Scudetto through that. It seems like the way and what we've seen of De Rossi is he's another one that's kind of a hybrid of both. He's not playing quite Mata ball, but he is a guy that has a clear style of play that he's starting to instill. And we'll see that probably develop even more this year.
Certainly. And I think that's, again, it goes hand in hand with the more attacking style. I think once you get that synergy between being a man manager and having a style of play, having a direction, having instructions out on the pitch, and having a captain on the pitch that can also help direct that. Once all that comes together, you're looking like a well-oiled machine. And when you look at Roma and what they're building at this point in time, it's right at the genesis of what could be exactly that. And so we'll see. Once we go through this team, I think it'll start to build itself out. There are definitely holes, and we'll touch on that.
To your point, Bose, about Mata ball, it's not that because he's a little bit less compact defensively. That was his one kind of weak point last year was they did allow a decent amount of goals in while Mata's defense is very compact. But he plays way more attacking than Mata. Like he will throw 6 guys forward to try to go get a win. That's why like in the second leg against Leverkusen, it was 2-2. And then that freak like kind of handball that wasn't called on Mancini went in own goal, and then it was 3-2, or it was 2-1, and then that tied it up, and then they had to go throw guys forward because they needed a goal, and then they ended up losing 4-2 because he was like, all of you guys go get a goal. So he will just throw guys forward. But to your point about Mata, players do love him. Like Pellegrini refound his form under De Rossi. He said, he lets me be free. He lets me roam, and that's how I can express myself. Paredes said in an interview, we want to give everything for him and the shirt because he gets the best out of us. So players do love him.
Last thing before we go into the squad, with that last little dialogue reminded me of is early days Klopp ball. It was build from the front and then figure everything out afterwards. They got their front three, they got their midfielders, then they figured out the defensive aspect of the game. Maybe we're seeing a little bit of that here. Who knows? It could be. It's early days for Daniele De Rossi, so we're going to have a lot of updates throughout the year on him, but it is an exciting time for Roma at worst.
Roma will be a fun team to watch this year, for sure.
And getting into the squad and the players that he has at his disposal, as always, guys, we're going to take you through the lines here and give you a little preview of who kind of the best players are, some guys to watch, and what exactly we're going to end up expecting the starting 11 to be. But starting with the goalkeeper group, there was a little bit of a transition last year. Rui Patricio was the number 1 for the last 2 years, kind of, maybe 3. And halfway through the season, he kind of got phased out of the squad. He was really shaky his entire time at Roma, to be honest. Anybody that watched them could see that. And the guy that took over, Svilar, 15 Serie A starts last year, really took it on, and is just a solid goalkeeper at this point. I don't have a ton of comments on him. I just expect solid performances. He isn't a guy that's going to be making a ton of headlines, I would say, at this point. But that could change. Like a lot of the guys on this Roma team could be headlines in a year. But from just an outside standpoint, just a solid keeper, a guy you can rely on to not lose you games.
I don't think that they need a goalie that's going to be in the build-up. They're not playing out of the back. They need some guy that's going to be in there, that's going to stop some shots, give them a chance, keep them in games. And that's all you can ask for from a Roma perspective. They also went out and bought some bum from Eredivisie. They had some chunk change in their pocket. They're like, all right, $3.5 million, toss it over there. Let's get a 32-year-old goalie just to come in, play some games. We're playing 3 competitions. Toss him in there, give the other guy a break. I don't think he'll be a factor, but they just need somebody to stand in there and just be in the way.
It's funny because Mourinho would have killed for them to buy somebody for $3.5 million, and now they're just kind of throwing out money for a backup goalie. But Rui Patricio, he was a Mourinho guy. Like Mourinho, like played him every single game, whether he did bad or good. Just was dying on that island because he did bad a lot of the times. When De Rossi got there, he made the switch, and this goalie balled out for De Rossi. I remember watching the Juventus game. Juventus should have had like 4 goals. He stopped them all, and it was a 1-1 draw. He balled, and then I remember they were playing a Europa League knockout game, and it went to PKs, and he saved 2 PKs. So he is a very, very underrated goalie who I think is going to have a good year.
We can hope. It's all. I would love that. Another Serie A star in the making here, it seems like. But moving on from the goalkeeper group into the center backs, again, guys, what we were talking about, we're expecting a back 4 most likely. There's a chance it's a 3. So when we're talking about this, we're going to discuss it as if it's a back 4. This is a center back squad that's become a little bit light from last year to this year, and there's a little bit of uncertainty. 2 guys they lost coming into the season, Diego Llorente, who played a lot of games last year, and Rasmus Christensen, again, who played a lot of games. I think he started 19 games total between these guys. I mean, one of them played pretty much in every game. So
Yeah,
that's a
Llorente
big
started
loss.
27.
So that's a big loss there, and they're going to have to pick up some minutes. At this point in time, they have not added another center back in the Mercato. That being said, we do expect a little bit more business from Roma before the season begins. There aren't a ton of links right now either, but we do expect something to happen here, just given how light this center back group is. And taking you through it from the top, we have Chris Smalling, Mancini, Indica, and Marash Kumbula coming back from a loan at Sassuolo. Very thin group, guys. A couple of really good players, but very thin group.
I've never been hot on Mancini. Obviously, he was shadowed. He was shadowed by the fact that he was in a back 3, had a ton of coverage, and I mean, I don't think he had a phenomenal Euros by any means. I don't even know that he got that many minutes, and probably Buongiorno should have played over him at any point in time. However, big fan of Indica, was linked to AC prior to his move to Roma. Left-footed center back, as we like to talk about, that's super important to play on the left side. And I'm always, always, always a fan of the gigantic Chris Smalling. He's a monster. He's a bag, though. He might crumble to dust this season, so they certainly do need to go out and get another center back.
Yeah, the Chris Smalling one's interesting because he didn't play a lot last year. I believe that was mostly because of injury, but at this point, they're going to need him to just log big minutes, to be honest, just unless they add somebody. And on Mancini, before we move on from him, this is the captain of Roma who led this team to the first European final and win that they've had in almost 60 years, as Motts said it. This is a guy that started 34 Serie A games last year. Yes, he isn't the best with his feet, but Daniele De Rossi is adding that to his game. You're going to see this guy getting forward, participating offensively. And what does he do at his best? He is an athletic defender who loves to tackle, and that's what he does. He breaks up play. He is a wild card that you can just play, and he's going to trump everybody on the back end. I am sick of this Mancini slander, and I'm not going to stand for it this season.
I do think Pellegrini is the captain in any case. I will say that every time I've talked shit about Mancini, this man decides to show up on a random Sunday, noon game, and head in 2 goals against AC's 2 feet tall center backs. And it's always the most frustrating thing to talk to you about afterwards because you're like, oh, he's so good. He does this, he does that. I think he's kind of just like a stomp. He kind of just stomps out there. I know he's a good defender. He's good at defense, and I guess that's his job. But I would not be confident running that guy out for that many games as Roma is.
He doesn't prove you wrong when he puts on the Azzurri jersey. He proves you right when he's wearing that blue. But I agree with Vos in terms of Mancini's or De Rossi's adding the ball skills to his game. He's going to be getting higher up the pitch. I believe he was like their 3rd or 4th leading scorer last year. He only had 4, so
yeah,
it wasn't a lot.
He was tied for 4th.
So he's tied for 4th. So he definitely is higher up the pitch, whether that be on set pieces or the run of play. But he's a solid player. 34 games started. He's definitely going to be a staple every game if he stays healthy, obviously. But he's going to be a utility guy. You might see him play center back some games. You might see him be playing center mid. You might even be playing him or seeing him playing like an outside center back spot if they're on the ball in that 3-2-4-1 formation.
Lokes was right. Also, he's the alternate captain.
He's the vice captain.
To be fair, but I'm going to count it as captain still.
He's a leader of Roma.
Yeah, he's definitely. I think he's the loudest voice in the room kind of guy.
What I will tip my cap to him, Mancini, is no red cards last year, and for a guy that played that many games at center back, I mean that's impressive. So I mean at least he's consistent, he's controlled, and he's always out there. But I don't know if he really adds that much.
Yeah. Also, well, real quick, I remember one thing that we left off was that, and this guy didn't play that much either, but they did loan in Dean Huijsen from Juventus last year. He played 4 games. De Rossi tested him out, didn't really love him, so he won't be missed. But it goes back to what Vos said. He'll be missed just because it's a thin group, not a lot of depth here. Only got 4 guys. Need to add a 5th for sure, especially because you don't know what you're going to get from Smalling after him not playing that much last year due to an injury.
And part of the Dean Huijsen out, Marouche Kumbula coming back has a little bit more significance now. This was a guy that when they brought him in, there was a lot of confidence that he was going to be one of the next big center backs and that he would potentially then have another move from Roma. That hasn't worked out so much just yet, but I'm sure that was, Dean Huijsen logged like 4 or 5 starts. Let's give Kumbula that chance. Worst case, it doesn't work. We'll get rid of him. But again, they need to add another center back to this group. We're all in consensus. We don't know who it is. It doesn't even necessarily need to be a guy that's like a knock-on starter 100%. They just need somebody with some potential at minimum.
Maybe they got somebody in the Primavera system that
could be true. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say because we only get so much of a look into the Primavera guys. But it is true. There's always a guy that breaks out every year. So we'll see. But moving it on into the outside back / wing back group, we'll call them. This is probably a big strength for this team at this point. They did lose Leonardo Spinazzola, who last year, he's getting older, didn't log quite as many games, was less of a factor than he's been in the past. He's on to Napoli, which I'm excited about separately from Roma. That should be actually a really good fit for Conte's system. But we like this wing back group as a podcast in general, taking you guys through who kind of their top players are here. And I apologize, I'm going to botch this pronunciation because I'm not Turkish. Celik, just a really solid, usually right back / right center back, can do both. Rick Karsdorp, Dutch guy that kind of got phased out under Mourinho, has come back into the squad under Daniele De Rossi. Very just solid player. He's one of those guys that I feel like could probably play on Inter and do well. Just does a couple things really right and doesn't do a whole lot bad. Angelino, Spanish guy. He was on loan last season, completed a full transfer this summer. Left wing back. He's kind of been around the block, was linked to City in his heyday in his career, spent a lot of time at Leipzig. And as you can expect from a Leipzig guy, he's somebody that's just going to get up and down the pitch. Very good left-footed cross, delivers them very well. And one of my favorite players on this team, one of my favorite players in Serie A, I'm spacing on his first name, Polish national, Zalewski. This guy is left-footed, left wing back, can play a little bit of probably left wing if you need him to. He's going to be forced back probably into a traditional left back role this year. He had a great Euros. This is the player to watch from the wing back group. If you haven't watched him before, this is a guy that's going to be one of the best outside backs in the world at some point, I would say.
2 of my favorite guys to watch on Roma, at least, and maybe in Serie A. Certainly Rick Karsdorp. It was very sad to see him play so much on the bench under Mourinho, but Nikola Zalewski is the real deal. I don't know how many people were able to watch him on Poland during the Euros. Poland were abysmal. But I think when you look at it from a silver linings playbook here, Zalewski was phenomenal.
Silver linings playbook. I like that.
He was phenomenal. This man, from a wing back position, almost ran the offense for them. He was their only bright, shining star, played phenomenal crosses in, was able to link up play, looked at like a winger, but also played phenomenal defense, high energy. This guy's the real deal. Love to see that he's getting the time after Spinazzola got a little bit phased out with age, but watch this guy for the rest of the season. And you'll be rather amazed.
Yeah, they got, 2 guys on each flank to rotate is very good, and they're solid. So when they sub out one of them for the other one, they're not losing a lot of talent there. So like they're not really, like Logan always says, their ceiling's not too high, but their floor is very high. So whoever he slots in there, he's not really losing a whole lot. And they did actually just buy another left back as well, Samuel Dahl. I'm not sure if that's pronounced right. I believe it is. They just bought him for 4.3 mil from a team that I'm not even gonna try to attempt to say the name because I've never heard of it. But just another kind of position where Roma is getting another reinforcement.
Yeah, and it's big. It's big. It's big to have the reinforcements. We talked about the couple of squads we previewed have been very thin, and you need that to make any sort of damage in the league. You need more than one guy at every position, and that's really what they're trying to build out here. When we move up here into the midfield group, you'll see they've built this out. This is by far their strongest area of the pitch, and realistically, we're looking at probably three guys here that are the day one starters. Again, we're expecting a 4-2-3-1. So probably two defensive midfielders and a number 10, most likely, we would say. And in this group, we have a couple guys. If you don't recognize them, I don't know where you've been. Two of them, Leandro Paredes, Lorenzo Pellegrini, that's probably the biggest names. Moving on from them, even Brian Cristante, kind of a club legend at this point. He's been around so long, logged so many games. And then a couple guys that have been breaking through in Bove and the new signing, Lefay. This is an interesting group, a little bit dynamic, not a whole lot dynamic. There's a little kind of a lot of the same, I would say. A lot of guys that can play as an 8 and as a 6 in a more defensive kind of role with a lot of bite. But then you do have the best 10 on the team, one of the best 10s in the league, and Lorenzo Pellegrini.
This midfield group is strong. I mean, I'll start with with a favorite now, Lefay. Actually came from Ligue 1, but still a phenomenal starter for the years that he was at Stade Rennes. Defensive 8, I would say, not so much a 6, but certainly a defensive 8 with a phenomenal passing range, great field presence, almost like a field general, which is what they kind of need. I think him next to a Cristante or next to a Paredes is a very nice combo. But I obviously you can't go this entire time without talking about Pellegrini. Tough Euros for Pellegrini, I think we can all agree. However, the guy is uber talented, captain of the actual captain of the team, high energy, very creative, can play multiple positions. And I think that when he's playing at his best, that's when Roma's at his best. And when he's not, they certainly struggle at least a little bit.
Yeah, and then there's one other guy who they just actually got from Empoli, um, Tommaso Baldanzi. He's actually 21-year-old Italian, very solid midfielder, can play attacking mid, can play second striker, can play right wing, can very, very creative. He'll be a great rotational piece. But obviously, I think that the main three guys in this group are Pellegrini, like you guys mentioned, who, as I mentioned earlier, really found his form with De Rossi again. Mourinho kind of shackled him, made him play a little bit further down the pitch, had to defend a little bit more. De Rossi put him in his natural spot, let him roam around on that left flank, play the 10, play wide. So he was really able to thrive in that system. And then you have Paredes as well, who played very well under De Rossi, is able to kind of drop in between the center backs like Logan likes and play balls from deep, be that regista, be that low hanging midfielder. And then you have your horse, your ball winner in Cristante, who's going to be playing a lot of games. 30, I think was the most games played last year
Yeah.
with Roma with 37, I believe. And he's just going to win that ball back, be that bruiser that you need in the midfield. And then Lefay is going to be a great change of pace guy. Gonna kind of is the replacement that they brought in for Awar, because Awar was kind of very underwhelming. When Roma got him, I thought, hey, that's a great bargain buy. He's a very good player, kind of dominated in Ligue 1, didn't really transition to the Serie A. So we hope Lefay can transition a little bit more. But I do expect a good amount from him, and this was a solid buy. Just another rotational piece. This midfield group, as I'm going through and talking about each one, they got a pretty deep midfield group here that De Rossi can play around with and slot guys in different places and let them kind of dominate a game in the middle of the
Yeah, what I
field.
like about the Baldonzi and Bove kind of setup, it's two young Italian guys that both played a lot of games last year for Roma. Baldanzi played 13. So these guys, young Italian guys, are getting their chance on the squad. Not necessarily the number ones yet, but got a chance, and especially great older Italian guys to learn under, which is really big. And you don't see that at a lot of major Serie A clubs at this point. On the Cristante and Paredes pairing, I love this. Two guys that love winning the ball back. Paredes obviously being the more skilled one of the two of them, but that just sets you up so well to let your attackers go do their thing when you have two guys that are just want to win the ball back when you lose the ball and are just good defenders in their own right.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, that just allows Pellegrini to fully express himself up top and not have to worry about having to track back and have that in the back of his mind, which I'm sure it was always in the back of his brain with Mourinho because he's so defensive, is you have to go get back. Having Paredes and Cristante back there, you can just let Pellegrini be Pellegrini and float around. And same thing for Dybala when we get into the striker spot. He can float around, they can interchange, they don't even need to think about dropping back to play defense because they know that we have Paredes and Cristante back there.
And I know Vos, this could be a solution though. With the flexibility that they have in the midfield, there is a solution to the lack of depth at center back in your mind.
Yeah, this is something that I had considered a couple years ago for Roma as something that might be good for them, and I'm talking about Brian Cristante here. In the mold that he's in, he's not the most mobile midfielder. He does get around the field, but he's not overly athletic. He is very good defensively, and we see that time and time again from him. With how thin their midfield group has gotten, I mean their center back group has gotten, and I primarily originally thought of this in a back three sense. I think Brian Cristante could be more than serviceable in a center back role in more games than not. Not only as a like kind of a rotator because people are hurt, but when you actually just need a guy that can play some games, like he's a guy that can probably get it done pretty well. And he'll add a little bit more dynamism from the back in terms of ball carrying ability and passing range. So I don't know if I expect it, but it could be a solution.
When you look at it though, from where the game is moving to in terms of outside backs and not necessarily in the specific system, but if there were a game that you needed it, a lot of teams are going to 4 center backs across the back and they move one into the midfield. Calafiori, John Stones, Nathan Ake, et cetera, et cetera. Cristante may be able to do that. I mean, you can convert him from that CDM spot, have him play out the back, and then move him up in possession. I think that would be a perfect fit for a guy like him.
With you guys just talking about that, I'm over here thinking maybe you move Mancini into the Loriente spot that he played last year because Mancini is a better defender than going forward. He obviously can do it and is getting better at it. But then you slot Cristante in that Mancini role because Cristante had 3 goals, so 1 less, but he had 4 assists, so 3 more than Mancini. So you're getting maybe not as good of a defender, but still a solid defender in Cristante, but a much better offensive player in that spot. So that's a good shout by Yuvos, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see it a couple of times from De Rossi this season.
And just to wrap up on this midfield group, one of the keys for Roma in my mind is going to be getting the most out of Pellegrini, right? When Roma was firing on all cylinders, it was Pellegrini was able to kind of do his thing, and that is pick up the ball, make passes, carry the ball, and just kind of get into the spaces where he's the best. And we talk about this offline a lot about how well he understands space and then can dictate play from there. I'm expecting a massive season from him, and if he doesn't have a massive season, Roma's not going to have a good season. That's I honestly think that.
When you put it that way, he's a higher energy, more defensive minded Bruno Fernandes. Good in spaces, needs to be a little bit more flexible, free roam style to find the right spaces to play those key passes. But in that sense, I mean that's the offensive style that Bruno brings to Man U. And you're right. If Pellegrini is able to get that flexibility and is given that freedom to roam, that's when they are at their best.
I think that they brought somebody in this forward group that we'll talk about that could allow Roma to have still a decent season, even if Pellegrini doesn't have an amazing year. But I do think, like, obviously, if Pellegrini has a good year, Roma will have a good year. But
I
I'll
also
tell you,
just want him to have a good year because I love Pellegrini. As a Serie A fan, I feel like you have to love Pellegrini and want him to do well.
and an Italian fan.
Yeah.
100%. Motts, is there any bias in that call right there?
No, I don't think so.
No
I'll
bias.
explain it when we get to the strikers.
And just like that,
Interesting.
we're on to the striker group. The forward group, it's striker slash outside mids. If you guys are thinking 4-2-3-1, this is a group that's changing a lot, and we expect a little bit more change again before the season ends. In this group, we're talking Stefan El Shaarawy, the new signing from Juventus, the guy that Motts was alluding to with no bias. Mateus Sule, very excited about this guy to see him on a top level team playing a lot. This should be interesting. Artem Dovbyk from Girona was one of the top. Was he the top scorer last year? Top scorer in La Liga for Girona. The legend Paulo Dybala and my boy coming back from Japan, Solbakken. I'll take a minute to talk about him a little later because we don't need to spend a whole time there. And there's one other guy in this group, Tammy Abraham, who we don't know is going to be a part of this group at the beginning of the season, which was very surprising to me and Logs. We were thinking that this was going to be a very important piece of this team going forward. It is very clear that that's not the case. He's very heavily linked to AC Milan at this point, and that is a big change there. And that's part of the reason they brought in Dovbyk. But to start, let's get with on Mateus Sule because I know Motts is literally foaming at the mouth to talk about this former Juventus guy.
Yeah, he's gonna have a great year under De Rossi and how he's gonna be deployed on the right flank. And so to my point earlier, I think that with Sule being able to occupy the right flank so well, you can move Dybala over to the left. He doesn't love playing that side, but that would be where Pellegrini is. To make it, I mean, if De Rossi, what I assume he's gonna do because he's so attacking, he's gonna play all three of them across the front. So then they can all just be Dybala and Pellegrini and Sule can just be fluid between the three of them and they have a threat and through the middle, through the right, and through the left, that would be a dynamic attack. But if he's playing more conservative in that 4-2-3-1 or 3-4-2-1 when they have the ball, you can see Dybala maybe take the Pellegrini role if Pellegrini's not on his in form because of the Sule option that he has now. But I think Sule for who was he loaned to last year? I'm forgetting.
Rosanone.
Yeah, Frosinone. He in the Serie A, not even in the Serie A, in the European top 5 European leagues, if you look at taking your man one-on-one, beating your man one-on-one, shots on target, chances created for players under the age of 22, Sule is top 5 for every single one. And that was on a less attacking team. You give him to De Rossi, he's going to be even better than what he was on Frosinone. He's going to probably score at least 10 goals. I think he's going to have 10 assists. It's very quickly. I think people are going to realize that Roma got a bargain for him at 26 mil and that he could easily be worth 50 to 60 million dollars.
That's definitely the consensus. It seems like from Juve fans, particularly, they're kind of bummed about this. Obviously, they're bringing in money to try to go strengthen other areas of the field, but this is one that a lot of people are saying we're going to regret, especially if we had to play him at least twice a year now.
Yeah,
100%.
100%.
Motts, when you talk about Pellegrini, Dybala, and Sule being so fluid across the three, maybe we call it cams, whatever it is in that 4-2-3-1, all I can think about is a three-headed dragon. And you try to cut off one head, and the other two are just going to destroy you on the other side. And that is absolutely dominant now that I'm looking at it. I mean, there's no way to stop that, especially when you have a player like Dovbyk coming in from La Liga, coming off a season like he did, who is phenomenal at letting other guys play off of him, which I think at least one of the strengths of all three of Pellegrini, Dybala, and Sule is to be able to play off that one striker up top. I mean, this is a monster of an attack. And I'm actually, as an AC fan, extremely scared to play Roma from that sense. But from the Serie A perspective, it just adds to the lore that is this Roma team this season to see how well that they gel and to see how well they develop together. Especially, again, like I said, Dovbyk, phenomenal finisher, great short passing. I mean, he had 8 assists last
10
year.
assists. 10 assists last year.
10 assists.
Real low, just to piggyback off what you were saying, that three-headed monster, Pellegrini and Dybala are two of the most creative players in the Serie A. You add a striker who got 10 assists last year, and Sule is creative as well and can finish. So you have 4 guys that can score from anywhere, pick out any pass, win the ball in the air. It's a scary up top. Scary up top.
Yeah, and on that exact point of bringing in some more guys that can score goals, this is really big for this team. I'm not going to pretend that I watched a lot of Dovbyk in La Liga last year, but I've seen some highlights, seen his stats. This is somebody that should come in and get you at least 10 goals, you would hope.
More than
Last
that.
year, Roma only had 2 guys over 10 goals, and that was Romelu Lukaku and Paulo Dybala. You now add Sule to the mix and Dovbyk, and now you're looking at 3, potentially 4, potentially 5 guys that have the capability to put in 10 plus, and that completely flips the script on how your season can go when you got a couple guys that can bang in goals, and all you need is one of them to get hot to really carry you through the season.
Surely.
Yeah. And I just like to real quick, just talk about what De Rossi did for Dybala. He really unlocked him when he became the manager, allowed him to free roam on that right side of the pitch, go wide, play the 10 spot. And when De Rossi became the manager of Roma, Dybala started to find his Juventus form. And we all know how good of a player Dybala can be. He is must watch TV when he's in form. His left foot is so good. You know what he's going to do every single time. It's the Iron Robin effect. He's going to cut it on the left. He's going to curl it in, and you cannot stop it when he's in form. And he can score from anywhere. As I mentioned earlier, you could pick out a pass. Under De Rossi, I believe it was his first 7 games or 8 games. No, first 10 games, he had 7 goals and a hat trick. So he really was able to unlock him and get the best out of Dybala, which he's going to do again this year, only having a full season.
The worry with Dybala is always the fitness. You can
Yeah.
lose him for the whole season very early, and that would hurt this team tremendously. Especially, I mean, he was 13-9 last year for goals and assists in 25 games, which is very good.
He seemed to be pretty healthy last year.
Yeah. It's I mean, I don't remember a time when he strung multiple healthy seasons together, though. Is really my concern there.
Agreed.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
always been the knock on him.
And with Tammy Abraham, let's just touch on him really quickly. Tammy is like kind of like a classic 9 build, but is a little bit better of a link up player. This is clearly just saying that's not what De Rossi wants. He wants a ruthless finisher, and that's all he needs out of his 9. That's the message that is being sent, I think.
100%, especially since Dovbyk isn't a great like link up passer. He's great within the box and setting up on a short passing game and tiki taka type deals, but certainly not in build up. And certainly with the lack of energy on defense from Dovbyk, that's not what he's looking for in his 9. He's letting Tammy go. I think it's the right time. He's coming off an injury. He didn't play at all really last year. Let him get a fresh start. At least they owe it to him. He had a phenomenal run for a couple of seasons there for Roma. And I'm obviously excited to see that he has that link up to Milan.
Yeah, and I just want to say Milan because obviously that we just talked about them on Monday, so we're not going to get a chance to talk about Tammy to AC. This really fits clearly what Fonseca's trying to do. Murata, more of a link-up player. Now let's get Tammy, who's somebody who's a little bit different, more athletic build. So interesting one there. As an AC fan, I do hope that happens. That'd be very interesting. But the last guy I want to touch on here, I'm not sure you guys are going to have a ton of comments on him. Andrea Bellotti has left the team. So there is kind of a hole for somebody else to step into here. I have a guy, Ola Sobakin. He has been on loan away for basically 2 years and has done essentially nothing. He was at Olympiacos, didn't really play. He went to the Japanese league, didn't even really play there. He is now back on the squad, and from everything that I'm reading, he is not linked away in a full transfer. He's not linked away in loan. This is a Norwegian winger slash striker who's 6'1", very athletic. Kind of reminds me of Benjamin Sesko in a lot of ways, and how he's this big guy that can kind of just get around the field. Not nearly as good. That's not my point, Logs. I know that's what you're shaking your head at. But this is a guy that I think in the right system you can get a lot out of, and I have been very impressed the couple times I have seen him play for Roma. He is not a finished product by any means. But with the group of players that's here, I could see him getting a couple opportunities to come in, get some ground under his feet to stand on, and kind of build from there. And if they get something out of this guy, that's a big piece that you're adding to this team. A big kind of forward that's kind of in a striker build that could play on the outside is not something that comes around a lot. So I am interested in watching the story develop.
I think you just have to keep him if Tammy is gone, which it looks like he will leave. You got to keep him just for depth alone. Whether or not he produces is something else, but you just need a rotational piece because the one guy I don't think we really talked about a lot, who is a very good rotational piece, is El Shaarawy, but you can't have one sub, right? For four people up front, you need at least 2 or 3. So you got to keep him on just for the rotational piece. But I did want to touch on Tammy really quick. I think they're letting him go because it's not a hold to fill. He was injured almost all of last year. It's not really like, how are we going to replace this guy? He's really been pretty underwhelming, in my opinion, for his whole stint on Roma. I think he had maybe a couple months of good form, but never really consistent. So they're kind of cutting their losses and saying it's time to move on from Tammy, which
Lugs, and me and you are kind of in disagreement, and it more so comes from what Tammy could be rather than what he's done.
once you're 26, bro, that's like Chiesa now. At this point, you're in your prime. It's not what you can be.
Yeah,
You're
but
26 years
he's
old.
not a runner.
Bro, you're 27. Are you out of your prime?
I mean, I'm not out of my prime, but I can't go play soccer anymore. Like Tammy getting to the point where how many chances are we going to give this guy? Couldn't do it at Chelsea. He's crashing and burning. He's going to crash and burn at AC Milan because he's really not that good.
I mean, I really think the big reason they're letting him go is he was clearly 100% a José Mourinho guy.
Yeah.
Had him at Chelsea, brought him to Roma, big price tag. Underwhelming from a price tag perspective, still a decent amount of output over the years. But I think he could have slotted in as the backup 9, especially with Bellotti leaving. But again, fresh start, fresh coach, that's fine. He's done his job, let him go. That's it.
And that wraps up the squad preview. But now we're going to give you guys what our predicted 11 is. We kind of did this one as a group just because there is a lot of variability to this team, and we could be wrong about this one. We're right about all the other ones. Not necessarily. But this one we definitely are not 100% confident on. We set it up as a 4-2-3-1. And you guys just jump in here when you do have comments. Back four, Rick Cardstorp at right back, Mancini and Indica as your two center back pairing. Indica left-footed. We really like left-footed center backs playing the left role. In the left back, the guy that we highlighted, Nikola Zalewski, love him. Into the midfield, the pairing, Motts, so beautifully talked about. Leandro Paredes and Brian Cristante. Those are the two guys we expect there. That one I feel like is the lock. There's a lock.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's so funny that Crisante's first name is just Brian. You forget that. People forget that his name is Brian.
Brian Cristante. And then just moving on into like the three, we'll call them cams. It can be wingers, 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1. With Soulé coming in, we expect him to start. So across the front three, we're expecting Matheus Soulé off the right, and then one of Pellegrini or Dybala as the center cam. My guess is Dybala. I could be wrong, and then Pellegrini on the left side. That one I don't really know what they're gonna do because I think Pellegrini's probably better off the left than Dybala is off the left. But I also think Pellegrini's better as a cam than Dybala is at a cam, like in the center of the field. So that'll be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, this is their biggest question mark for sure, and we have to see what De Rossi is going to do here because, as you mentioned, if you play Dybala in the middle, he's going to shade to the right, and Soulé is also extremely left-footed. So they're really similar players, and Dybala had such a good year on the right flank and being able to freely roam. Sorry about that. And Soulé can't play in the middle, right? So you can't switch them. Pellegrini, as you mentioned, better in the middle, but Dybala will not play on the left. Like he just won't do it. And that's one of the reasons why Juventus, he was such a question mark on Juventus for sometimes, because tactically it's like, where do you play this man? He's like multiple steps below Messi, so he's not good enough to like be that 10 and take over a game, but he's a very similar player in Messi where he just roams around and does whatever he wants. So tactically, it'll be interesting to see what De Rossi does with these three.
On Soulé, bringing in like a more ruthless 9, it may make sense to use him off the left. I don't, that probably isn't going to happen, but they could do it and then have Dybala play off the right, more comfortable there, and then kind of sacrifice some goal scoring ability from Soulé to just get him in more of like a creative role off the left as a left-footed left winger. So it'll be interesting, but those are our expected three. And then the striker is 100% going to be the new signing, Artem Dovbyk from Girona. That's what they brought him in to do, bang in goals, and that's what we expect from Roma this season, guys. They're playing in 3 competitions: Serie A, Coppa Italia, and once again in the Europa League. What are we going to define as a successful season for Daniele De Rossi and his team here? Because I don't really know, and I'm gonna make this one up on the spot because I don't have a clear expectation.
In my opinion, this team just needs to get back to Europa. I've been conservative on all my calls for all these team reviews, but for my call here, get back to Europa League, get that top 6, show that you can repeat what you did in the second half of the season here, show that you can develop players, but most importantly, just show that you're the right person for the role and that you get that next step in the contract in the series of years here. Because if you don't do that, then obviously it's a failure. All you have to do is just make it to the next season here, stay alive, get to Europa, top 6. I think that's a good benchmark. And then also make a run in Copa. Just make a run. Be exciting, bring the fans back in, and again, show that you can develop these players because you do have a lot of young talent. There will be a lot of growing pains they have to deal with, but make sure you can deal with them, show the league that you can deal with them, and move on. Survive and advance at this point.
I think so. I want to see what else happens in the Mercado because I think Roma's got a solid squad, right? I think it's going to be tough to finish 1, 2, or 3 because Inter, Milan, and Juve, I think, are slightly stronger. And I need to see what happens with Coop Miners because if Coop Miners stays at Atalanta, that's real tight. Atalanta and Roma, they could go. They'll fight for that 4th spot. I think. I don't know who would win. I could see them finishing 4 or 5 right now. If Juventus get Coop Miners, I'd give Roma the jump at 4. Coppa Italia, I agree with Logan. Make a run, try to go deep, try to get that trophy. Maybe quarterfinals, semifinals would be good. Europa League is interesting because once again, Mourinho got them to 2 European finals. So I think they're expecting a deep run in the Europa League. They got to the semifinals last year, kind of on the back of Mourinho / De Rossi teamwork. So I think if you're De Rossi, you have to go far in the Europa League, semifinals or finals minimum, because Mourinho did it year in and year out with them. So
This is interesting to me because, Logs, to your point, you're kind of saying he just needs to do what he did last year. And for me, as an organization, I don't think that should be enough. As a club that's striving to improve, I would like to see the barometers get to the Champions League. I'm fine with them scrapping the Europa League, Coppa Italia, focus on the league, get into the Champions League. As an organization as a whole, their first goal should be getting to a Scudetto winning season. Before you do that, I don't think you should be focused on anything else because there's nothing stopping you from getting to that level. You just aren't in the same cycle as Inter Milan. Like, again, we're talking about now they're starting to spend money. So, what is stopping you from getting to that point? You're just building your squad to do that. So, focus on the league, bump up another level in table, get to that top 5, top 4, whatever it may be, get into the Champions League. Then go on from there. If they finish 6th again, I would say this is not a successful season. I would like to see them make a Europa League run.
Hold,
how
hold
can
on.
you?
Hold on. Yes, they're spending money. Sure. They gave Mourinho 2, 3 seasons, and all he did was finish 6th, especially in how competitive 6th, 5th. I don't think he ever went top 4, but that was Jose Mourinho. And if you're looking at it from a competitive standpoint, I mean, this Serie A is unbelievably competitive. So for a guy that came in, had one half a season, how are you not going to give him at least just match the last guy that you brought on for the biggest signing that Roma's seen in a long time?
Yeah, but
And
why as an organization, why are you gonna say just match what we've been doing for 3 years and that's fine?
but to how can you say scratch the throw away the Europa League and the Coppa Italia after
No, I'm not.
Mourinho got them to 2 finals? Like
Yeah,
that is
no, I'm not.
moving backwards.
Uh,
Also, if they win the Europa League, they're in the Champions League. So you
yeah,
can't
but
just
I'm
yoss
not
that
looking at
competition.
it. I'm not saying throw it away. I'm saying that the objective should be finish top 4, top 5 in the league, whatever it's going to be. Because as you just said, Motts, and Logs, you're saying it as well. This league is competitive. Yes, this is one of the best squads in the league. I would say it's easily 3rd or 4th.
I think it's 4 or 5.
I
It
think
depends if
this team, player to player, competes with AC Milan in my mind. AC Milan has the flashier names, but when you go through the team, it's close. And we're probably saying AC Milan's the 3rd best squad in the league at this point. So what is stopping them from getting up there in fourth or third? They are capable of beating every team in this league apart from maybe Inter. That is the only team I could say 100% Roma is worse than.
Yeah, but at the same time, you have to do better than last year because of the money you spent, right? Mourinho got to 2 European finals, spent no money. Sure, he finished 6th in the league or whatever he finished, I'm not sure. But you just spent $90 million. You gotta finish 4, and you gotta go to the Europa League final because you just spent $90 million on a team that finished 6th and a team that went to the semifinals and lost in a heartbreaking fashion last year. So in order to improve and make that money worth spending, 4th place, Europa League final.
I'd also like to amend something I did say because I do think that this team can finish 5th. That puts them in Champions League. So in my mind, sure, that they can certainly aim for Champions League. I think 5th is the right spot for them.
We're gonna have to double check this because I think that is on a per season basis, and your 5th spot comes from
Oh,
how
so they don't get
far the
that's not the
teams go
following.
in Europe. Now, Italy has 9 teams in Europe, so we should go pretty far in each competition. So we have the best chance to get
Sure.
the 5th spot, but if we shit the bed, we only have 4 spots.
Fine.
Unless
Then
they win the Europa League, then they're automatically in the Champions League.
I'll put a contingency on my expectations here. If Italy does well within Champions League, Europa League, Conference League, and they get that 5th spot, yes, Roma should be aiming for Champions League ball. If Italy doesn't do well and they only have 4 spots, I'm totally fine with them seeing only Europa League again for the following season, as long as they're competitive, they show promise and they show advancement in the guys that they spend money on.
Paisan Army, let us know your thoughts. Tweet at us,
Yeah.
comment, let us know what, and you Romanistas, let us know what you think is a successful season with De Rossi under a full off season, a full summer to prepare, and a full season with 3 competitions.
This is all in my last point because I'm going to get it in because I'm the moderator here. The
Get
last
it in,
time
get it
Roma
in.
won a Scudetto was 2001. They need to focus on that and get it done. And with that, we're taking a break. We're back from the break, guys. As always, we're wrapping it up with the Mercato moves update. We got some official news coming out of Milan today. Pavlovic getting his medical done, signing almost a lock to be the starting left center back at the beginning of the season. I'm very excited. Logs is very excited. Motts even is very excited because we want good teams.
Bringing in that Serbian steel, as they say.
Sir,
Yes, sir. Sticking in Milan, club legend's son, Daniel Maldini, officially transferred to Monza. This was a guy that came through. Some people had high expectations. Logs, as one, did not. He really has not liked this guy since the day he stepped onto the pitch at the San Siro.
I've got one thing and one thing to say. I'll fucking see you. Danny Maldini was only in the squad because his fucking dad was in the back office saying, play my son, fluff me, play my son. And they put him out there looking like Big Bird, running around aimlessly with his head cut off like a fucking chicken. I'm happy to see him go. Best of luck. Hopefully Monza doesn't fall to the bottom of the table because of this guy. I really do like Monza in the league. Good riddance.
AC Milan really cutting ties with Maldini, the whole family.
Although
Maldini,
he was at the training the other day. There was a good video of him with Leao. So I don't know. Maybe he's coming back.
Zlatan won't let that
Stop
happen.
distracting our star players. Go to Monza. I'll see you.
Bringing us back to Turin, Juve just cannot get out of the news right now with everything that they're doing. The first official bid launched on Toon Coop Miners, looking at 45 mil. Puka, I'm hoping this one gets done.
Yeah. I mean, all the reports said Atalanta's looking for 60, that this bid was just to start the negotiations. I don't understand why you bid 45 if they're looking for 60. I mean, I like it because hopefully he wants to go to Juventus. He's saying no to everybody else. Maybe it's going to be like a Sule situation where they have to accept something smaller, but that never happens for Juventus. I'm sure Atalanta will just stick at 60. And if we don't reach 60, then we don't get Coop Miners.
This to me, if this was in FIFA, this is Giuntoli walking into Atalanta. He's going, yeah, 45 mil. And Atalanta goes, I'm hurt by this offer. I'm walking away now, and they never see each other again.
Yeah. No, I think they'll get this done. This is
45 and 5 million bonuses, 50 total should get this done. But it's just because Juventus wants to buy Atalanta's player, and they're going to be like, no, he costs 60 because you're Juventus. It's the
fair.
Juventus tax.
I like it.
The
I like
Juventus
it.
tariff. The tariffs on Juventus.
It's the
The
tax.
other tear for Juve right now. This is a one or the other situation. They are now linked to, I think his name's Karim Adeyemi at Dortmund, winger, striker, German, known for his pace. And the other guy that just got floated around today, Nico Gonzalez from Fiorentina. These are both guys that realistically would play on the outside of the field. They're two very different players. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on with this one. Adeyemi is more of like a counter-attacking finisher. Nico Gonzalez is more of like a possession-based player that can come inside and hold the ball. What are you reading, Motts? What is your understanding of what's going on here?
What's going on in terms of why we're interested in both and they're very different players is because we are so thin up front. So we need to bring players in, whether it be both or one of them. I don't think we're going for a specific style of play, just a player. Nico Gonzalez going for 30 mil. That's how much Fiorentina want for him. Fiorentina are interested in Wes McKennie. I know Giuntoli is probably going to try to do a swap deal. The only thing is Wes wants a pay raise and Fiorentina will not give him that pay raise. So that's probably out of the question. And then Adeyemi, we put in a bid 35 mil plus 10 million bonuses that is going to get rejected if it hasn't already. They bought Adeyemi from Leipzig last year for 30. So like Dortmund only buys players to make a shit ton of money. They'd be profiting like 15 mil here. They're totally not going to do it. He also just played in the Champions League final and played really well. My biggest thing here is, and I get it. Juventus had to sell Sule to get him off the books because on our books he was worth $1 million, so we got a $25 million profit on Sule. Why not just keep him? Why sell him to then go get another Argentina right wing and Nico Gonzalez? Or Adeyemi can play a little bit more. He could play right, left, and in the middle, but also young, doesn't know the league at all. Why not just keep Sule and then let him grow in the Mata system? So I don't know. I hope we get Adeyemi out of these two.
Quick take on these two guys. If it's me, just keep Chiesa. I don't really understand why they keep pushing him out when you're looking at guys like this. He's already on your squad. But from these two, if we're picking one, I'm with Nico Gonzalez, no bias. But I think he fits more into that Mata ball style of play. Better on the ball, a little bit more possession, and definitely more experience in Serie A, which I always think is a big add.
Even if we keep Chiesa, we need at least one. We're still thin.
Yeah,
and
that was my point. I think if they keep Chiesa, they still need to add another player. But anyway, we'll see how this one develops, guys.
I think it's real quick funny that Logan said no bias as he's wearing Fiorentina jersey.
The last little Mercado update here, guys. Colombian legend James Rodriguez, after his great Copa America, is now linked back to Europe, specifically Serie A. He's now linked to Lazio and Napoli. We saw this guy in the flesh here in Arizona. He looked really good. I don't know if he has Europe in the tank again, but it's at least interesting to talk about.
Napoli,
it'd be really cool to see him on Lazio.
I mean, are either of the team playing in Europe? I know Italy's a European league, but if it's one competition, I think he can
That's
offer
a good
some
point.
stuff.
That is a good point. I think Lazio, are they in? Not in? I thought they were.
If they're in like the
They've
conference league, and he can offer something in the conference.
Yeah, I guess.
Conference league is like the Copa America of the European league.
I think Napoli would actually not be a terrible fit after losing Zielinski. They kind of need a new creative attacking sort of midfielder, so it'd be interesting. But with that, guys, we are done. Next time we talk, it'll be Monday. We'll be giving you another club preview. We're getting closer to the season. We're almost running out of time here to get these done. We're approaching our full league table predictions, which I can't wait for, and we'll continue to just give you guys great content while we got no footy to watch. Lugs, what do you got for the Army?
Paisan Army, you know the deal. We are on all social media, X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, at Calcio Culture FC. Listen to us on all your favorite streaming websites, Spotify, Apple Music. Follow, 5 stars. You know the deal. Motts, take us away.
Paisan Army, don't be a gagoots, and Forza Calcio Culture.